Automation is a trend in the field of bioprocessing or screening. The advantage, I would say, for microtiter plates is that they follow more or less already a standardized format like the ANSI SLAS or SBS format. And a standardized format is very important for us as a supplier for automation equipment like our Beluga machine or MPSZ automated. Standardization is key.
Imagine building the perfect cell culture experiment. Clean data, reproducible results, textbook performance, only to watch it completely fall apart the moment you scale up. If that scenario sounds familiar, you're not alone. Today's guest has spent over 3 decades solving exactly that problem, from microtiter plates and spin tubes to shake flasks and beyond. Tibor Anderlei pioneered online monitoring in shake flask during his PhD, co-founded AC Biotec, and now leads customer success at Kühner Shaker, offering specialized support in shaking cultivation technology. Welcome to part 1. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brohlman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. Welcome, Tibor. It's great to have you on today.
Yeah, thank you. And grüezi, David. Hello, David. And thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm very pleased and excited to be here in your podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you on, Tibor. It's been a while we've been talking about it, and now we finally made it happen, so I'm really excited.
That's true.
Yes, that's true. It's like a good old Bordeaux wine. It takes some time to get to maturation, and then when you drink it, it's a good wine. That's the same with having a podcast interview. Tibor, share something that you believe about bioprocess development that most people disagree with.
I like this question, and I would say orbital shaken bioreactors like shake flasks, tubes, and microtiter plates are the most important bioreactors. Maybe besides steered bioreactors, as you know. They are the most important because they are very fundamental decisions regarding production strains and media composition are made in these bioreactors during the screening phase. And in my opinion, also the information the user gets by using these orbital shaken bioreactors is so essential. The bioreactors are not treated like that. For example, the topic cultivation conditions in orbital shaken bioreactors is not always part of the education at universities and schools.
You are making an excellent point. I think I've not heard about these bioreactors during my studies. Very spot on. Before we dive further into the technology, I'd like to talk about yourself first. Take us back to your PhD days and tell us what sparked your interest in bioprocessing and what were some pivotal moments along your long career that led you to now your current role at Kühner.
My career started at the Technical University of Aachen in Germany, and I studied there biochemical engineering. And just after I finished my final exam, a new professor started there. His name was Jochen Büchs, and he started a brand new lab there. And this opportunity was so interesting. It was both setting up a lab together with a team and, of course, his new research work, which was small-scale cultivation. Professor Büchs came from the BASF AG to the university, and he got also some old equipment from the company because they renewed the labs. And one system was a prototype of an online measuring device for measuring oxygen transfer rate in shake flask. And he developed this machine during his time at the company. And I can tell you it was a prototype, I have to say. It still used very expensive ingold probes for oxygen sensors, which were made for stainless steel bioreactors, and Atari computer at that time for data acquisition. But for me, the opportunity to start right away my research work with the online equipment was so clear that I took it and I further developed the machine. So expanded the prototype by adding the parameter carbon dioxide transfer rate and, of course, a very robust software together with an external company.
What made you realize that this technology you were working on could potentially revolutionize small-scale bioprocessing?
Was it a revolution? That is a real question. At that time, there was just no online measuring tool on the market for the shake flask. So to have an online signal already at the scale was very important, and I would say a kind of revolution. Then, of course, during PhD time, setting up the lab with a team together with a company developing commercial product during the PhD work, I always planted a seed in my mind to start a company by myself. And at the Biotechnology Conference 2000 in Berlin, I met Simon Kervers. He was a PhD student from the research center in Jülich, which is near Aachen. And he had the same idea. During 1 year, we had several meetings and discussions, and we founded then the new company AC Biotec. And we focused on contract research and contract manufacturing up to 300 liter stirred bioreactors. And we mostly run yeast cultivation and especially Pichia pastoris. And then the next step was, after 5 years carrying out contract manufacturing, I left the company because I saw we were too small for this kind of business and we had no own product idea in mind to get more investors on board. It's important I remained in risk with the company AC Biotec, and then I moved on to Kühner Shaker. As the team of AC Biotec was already expert in shaken cultures, we already carried out shaking seminars with Markus Kühner, the CEO of Kühner Shaker. And furthermore, I know Markus Kühner already from the Institute of Professor Büchs, because Professor Büchs and Kühner Shaker organized already, I think, 1999 in Basel and 2000 or 2001 in New York conferences in the area of the application of shake flask and microtiter plate. And Markus Kühner had already at that time the vision that he wants to support science by building, on the one hand, reliable machines, and on the other hand, providing customers with scientific contact about shaken cultures. Then I started 2006 my career at Kühner Shaker, and now I'm here for 20 years working for this company. I'm the CSO in charge of the customer interface, how I name it always, and that means sales, service, support. And support includes, in our case, in our company, GMP, troubleshooting, marketing, and applied technology. And I think we want to talk a little bit more about the 30 years experience in the field of small-scale cultivations.
Before we continue, biotech founders, I want to talk directly to you. Do you know that feeling when an investor asks about your manufacturing strategy and you freeze? One wrong CMC decision can cost you $2 million and 18 plus months of delays. Yet many CEOs are flying blind on these critical decisions. That's why I created the 1-week CMC strategy assessment. In 1 week, you get a personalized assessment of your molecule and development stage. We identify critical gaps before they become million-dollar mistakes. plus a strategic roadmap for high-stakes investor meetings. One CEO told me, David took me from feeling powerless about our CMC roadmap to confidently pitching investors. An absolute game changer for time-pressed CEOs. Whether you are preparing for Series A, approaching IND filing, or facing scale-up challenges, this gives you confidence to ace investor and board conversations instead of surviving them. Ready to stop second-guessing your CMC strategy? Check the link in the show notes and secure your spot. Because your breakthrough therapy deserves a solid CMC strategy. Now, let's get back to our episode. Yeah, absolutely. Let's unpack the onion because there's so much to talk about this technology, and a lot of people are using shaking cultures in one or the other way. So let's tackle the elephant in the room that frustrates many scientists. Why do shake flask and microtiter plate experiments that work well in publications often fail when someone tries to reproduce them in their own lab?
I think that's really a nice and important question. And I would say that a lot can be explained with the lack of knowledge about these bioreactors. The reason for this is that the cultivation conditions in orbital shaken bioreactors is not a topic during the education phase, as I said before. This, of course, luckily has changed a little bit over the last years, but it's still not optimal at all. And I can give you one example, and I have to say there's a very nice publication from Gesa Brauneck. She is from the Technical University of Aachen, of the lab of Professor Magnus, who is the successor of Professor Büchs. And Gesa Brauneck studied publications dealing with aerobic cultivations with E. coli for an optimal production strain. And she looked at the 15 most recent articles and gathered the information regarding their cultivation condition in shake flasks. And now, David, I can ask you some questions. Are you prepared for that?
Yes, you're putting me on the spot now. Let's do it.
Okay. So how many of the 15 most recent publications mentioned the media composition? So you can say a number between 0 and 100%.
I would say media is important. I'd say at least 60% cited media composition.
It's even more. So here they are really good. It was 100%.
Oh, excellent.
And how many you mentioned the cultivation temperature?
Well, there also I would say if the media is 100%, I would say it's close to 100%.
You are perfectly right. So now we come to, I would say, more specific parameters regarding shake flasks. So how many mentioned shaking speed?
Here, I would say it's less than 50%.
You are a little bit below, so it's 80% even. Filling volume, so how much liquid they put in the shake flask?
Let's say 70%.
You're close, 65. And the shake flask size, so if they work with a 125 milliliter flask, 250 or 1 liter flask?
Well, there I would say close to 100%.
No, it's 55%. And then last but not least, how many mentions the shaking diameter?
Oh, I think this one is a parameter that not many people mention. I would say it's below 50%.
Now you are far above, so it is 0%. And that is nothing new to me. I always say at seminars that more than 90% of the publication do not mention the shaking diameter. And this shows me that the shaking diameter seems to be not an important factor for a lot of users. But I can tell you it is as essential as, for example, the style of stirrer in a stirred bioreactor. If you use a Russian pitch plate impeller, everybody will mention that. but shaking diameter you don't see. And maybe one comment here, you can easily have 30% up to 50% more oxygen supply by using a shaking diameter of 50 millimeter instead of 25 millimeter at the same shaking speed. And in my opinion, now coming back to your question, if you do not know the shaking diameter, you cannot reproduce the experiments of the publication.
Yes, this is an excellent point. So details matter. There's no doubt about that. Microtiter plates and tubes and shake flasks, well, shake flasks have been around, but the others have been becoming increasingly more popular for high throughput screening. But they come with their own set of challenges. So in addition to what you've just mentioned, Tibor, what other challenges do scientists need to watch out for in order to succeed with these experiments?
That question leads to a long answer, I would say. Of course, you mentioned microtiter plates and tubes, so I would say both systems are quite popular in the moment. And why? Because they can be automated. Automation is a trend in the field of bioprocessing or screening. The advantage, I would say, for microtiter plates is that they follow more or less already a standardized format like the ANSI Flask or SBS format. And a standardized format is very important for us as a supplier for automation equipment like our Beluga machine or MPSZ automated. Standardization is key. The tubes are also very nice for automation because they can easily be used for cultivation step, for the shaking and cultivating, and for the first downstream process like separation because of their conical bottom shape. Also, suppliers of centrifuges are used to this format and have a long time experience with it and provide, of course, a lot of accessories. The history of the tubes is also interesting because it started at the EPFL in Lausanne, where Maria Wurm used the 50 milliliter TPP tube with a membrane filter to cultivate cells. And the tube, in my opinion, is a very good bioreactor for cell cultivation. The filling volume is about 10 to 30 milliliters and the shaking speed depends on the shaking diameter. Again, shaking diameter is between 180 and 300 RPM. In order to increase the oxygen transfer, some users tilt the tubes. But to be honest, I'm not a fan of it. Tilting is more or less like adding a baffle into the tube, and that will create higher shear stress on the one hand and foam creation. And especially foam can on the one hand increase the oxygen transfer when you have a fluffy foam, or on the other hand, it can decrease the oxygen transfer if you have a very sticky foam. And this leads, in my opinion, to unreproducible results, which should be avoided during the screening phase. So I would suggest to shake the tubes always in vertical position. Also, just a small side note, a few degrees more in tilting or less can have a huge impact on the fluid dynamics. I have read also publications and posters on cell culture conferences showing very good results using the tube or this bioreactor to simulate even a perfusion process. The publications compared the results with runs in stirred bioreactors and got similar results. Nowadays, the tubes also get competition with, for example, a 6-well ultra deep well plate, which also has a filling volume of about 30 milliliter. And now we come to the microtiter plate topic. So in general, microtiter plates have a very huge range, starting from 96 low well plates up to 6 ultra deep well plates. In my opinion, mostly used are 96 and 24 deep well plates. And we can now discuss, of course, about different influencing factors like the lid, squared, round well shape, or which button type is better, round, flat, conical. But to be honest, I also want to focus here more on the shaking speed and the shaking diameter. And here, I think it is very important. First of all, there is a critical shaking speed you have to overcome to get good mixing. in a microtiter plate. This critical shaking speed depends on the filling volume, on the media composition, and on the shaking diameter. The nice thing is that you can calculate this critical shaking speed, which is presented by a friend of mine, Wouter Dütz, and you can also find the step-by-step calculation in our science room on our website. I think you will also have that in your show notes. So the reason for the critical shaking speed is mainly that you need a certain centrifugal force to break the surface tension of your liquid. And for example, if you have a microtiter plate, a 96 well plate, and you shake it with 300 RPM and 12.5 millimeter shaking diameter, or you let it sit on the clean bench without shaking, the effect will be the same. The effect will be that you have no mixing at all. So at least here you have to shake, for example, 450 RPM to get a mixing effect in the 96 well plate. So I think this is very important to know that there is a critical shaking speed. And very often I hear the statement, small vessels need small shaking diameter. This is, in my opinion, not correct. In the microbial world, where high oxygen transfer rates are essential, we suggest to have filling volume lower than 30% of the nominal well volume of a microtiter plate. And you shake it with 50 or 25 millimeter, 300 and 400 RPM, more or less standard, I would say. In the world of cell culture, this is different. Here, the respiration activity of the cells is much lower. I would say 50 to 60 times lower than a yeast cell. And you can fill up the well of a 96 Tibor plate up to 800 microliter or even 1 milliliter. And in this case, and only in my opinion in this case, you need a shaking diameter of 3 millimeter and a shaking speed of 1000 RPM to get good mixing. And when you reduce the liquid volume again below 800 microliter, then 25 millimeter and 400 RPM is already sufficient. I hope now I give you a lot of numbers, I know, but I hope these examples could show you how important the knowledge on the level of small-scale system is.
Let me pause here for a moment because you delivered a ton of valuable information just to get our heads around that, because it's very important to get this right. I've done a lot of experiments using this technology, and what you've just said, Tibor, is absolutely essential. So small-scale shaken systems are great, and if you do that well, if you get all these detailed parameters right, they can be a powerful system because you can test a lot of different conditions in a very short time. Now, this leads me to the next question, because if you do this homework and you look at all these parameters in such a detailed way, you can, in most cases, use the data you're generating and hopefully, in most cases, even predict parameters at larger scale. But I would be curious, because you speak to a lot of companies, you've seen a lot going on in the industry. What were some of the most spectacular scale-up failures, and why did these fail?
I would think the most common scale-up issue is that the user performed their shake flask screening under oxygen limitation, because mostly they use too high filling volumes and too low shaking speed. And screening under this condition will lead in the scale-up to issues, because when you transfer the system into a lab-scale steered bioreactor, there is no oxygen limitation anymore present. And of course, the strain will then react differently in the range from building no product, I have seen that too, to even, which is of course a nicer, more product. But I give you another example. So I had a client and he was developing his bioprocess in shake flask. And let's say he found 100% of his product in the shake flask scale. And then, of course, he scaled it up in a steered bioreactor. And there he found only, let's say, 70% of his product. And of course, he was not happy about that. So he contacted me at that time because he knew that I can calculate the aeration rate in shake flasks. So how much air is flowing through a shake flask. So I calculated the aeration rate for his shake flask setup, and it was 0.5 VVM. Because users normally do not know the aeration rate in shake flask, then they typically install in microbial processes 1 VVM, that is really a standard, at their bioreactor. And this is exactly what he also did. So my suggestion was to reduce the aeration rate in the bioreactor to 0.5 VVM, like in the shake flask. And the result was he found more than 90% of his product in the steel bioreactor. So what I wanted to say, beside OTR, mixing time, power input, also ventilation is an important scale-up factor. And ventilation is related to the aeration rate and describes the process of removing volatile compounds out of the cultivation broth, like CO2 or ethanol. I can give you an example what changes the aeration rate in shake flask. So for example, if you use a wide neck glass, 250 milliliter, compared to a 250 milliliter narrow necked flask, you double the aeration rate. So you see already this small change by the neck geometry has a very high impact.
This wraps up part 1 of our conversation. So far, Tibor Anderlei has unpacked why small-scale experiments fail to translate and how mass transfer dynamics differ across platforms, and what oxygen transfer rate and CO2 transfer rate monitoring reveals that dissolved oxygen simply can't. These aren't just academic distinctions. They are the difference between a process that scales and one that doesn't. In part 2, we go deeper. And if this episode added value, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite platform. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.